everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's episode is going to be my first update for my Pan That Palette and Better Together project. So if you want to see what my progress has been in the last month, well then sit tight, we're going to jump right into it. My name is Marie and I am a beautiful mess. Here on my channel, I like to do a lot of project panning content, eyeshadow content, and really any other kind of makeup content that I can think of. So sit back, relax, and come on a magical makeup journey with me. So like I said, this is my first update for my Pan That Palette and Better Together project pan. This is a Pantastic Ladies collab. The Pan That Palette theme for this year is fun-sized, and that was created by Jacki Lootens. And then the Better Together portion of the project pan was created by Paula, also known as a beauty guru made me do it. We're gonna start with my Pan That palette, which is the ColourPop Clearly in Love palette. I'm gonna pop a picture up on the screen of what this was looking like at the beginning of the year. Coming into the project, this palette was weighing 80.94 grams. And this is what it's looking like today, weighing in at 80.46 grams for a total of 0.48 grams used. And this is what the palette is looking like in person. Happy, shiny pan already, which absolutely really surprised me on this. I'm gonna pop a picture of this palette in its current state up on the screen with my usage for the month so that I don't have to hold this up the entirety of the video. The first shade in the palette, called Guess What, I only used 7 times in this project, and this is the shade that I hit pan on, and I am completely baffled that I hit pan already. The only thing that I can think of is that when I pulled this palette out of my collection, that shade had popped out of its plastic packaging. It was still in a square, but it was out of its little plastic home. So I did repress it with some isopropyl alcohol and put it back in its home. But that is the only thing that I can think of why I hit pan on this so quickly. In case I forgot to say, I did use this shade 7 times, and 7 times it should not be looking like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm extremely excited that I have a pan already in this palette, but I kind of feel like it's a faux pan. It's not a real pan. I want to hit a real pan in one of the other shades. But I anticipate that this pan is only going to get bigger as time goes on. That shade is a very light shade, and I do need a lot of it to build it up to the opacity of how I like to wear it. Shade number 2 is called My Number, and I wore this in looks 6 times last month. Now this one is a Super Shock shadow, so you can absolutely see that there is a dip in it, but it's not where Guess What is. I hit Guess What in 4 uses. It's definitely got something to do with the repressing, I pretty much think, but also the fact that My Number is a Super Shock shadow as well. I anticipate that I'm gonna be hitting pan in that pretty quickly as well. The third shade in the palette is called Sprung, and I only used it once. Not really much I can say about this shade. It's okay, it's not my favorite. It does have some sparkly glitters in it, which go along with some of the other shades in this palette, but I don't know. I haven't been gravitating towards the browns at all this past month. Shade number 4 is called Simp For You, and I used this twice this past month. In only using this twice, it's got a pretty big dip on it, and if I end up hitting pan in that one because it's the same kind of powdery texture that Guess What is, then I know it's the quality of the palette. This palette is like 1.5 years old. This coming August it'll be 2 years old. So I don't know if the quality of these palettes were just trash to begin with, or if it's become trash in that amount of time. I have eyeshadows in my collection that I've had for over 8 years and they still work beautifully, not like this. but it just makes me really happy that I picked this palette and that I'm going to be getting this out of my collection along with the other two. I really now want to work on the other two that are in my collection as well. Shade number 5 is called Shoddy, and I only used this 2 times. This is also the Super Shock formula. It's a little bit darker than my number is, but I don't know. I should have been gravitating towards this in Love Month, but there was just other palettes that I was having so much fun with that I only used this twice last month. I really need to pick up the pace on the usage on that one. Shade number 6 is called Like, and it is a very dark pinky shade. And didn't wear this at all for Love Month. I only wore it twice since the intro. And I should have been capitalizing on it, but again, I was playing with other palettes that I was having more fun with when it came to February pinky purple looks. Shade number 7 is called Hey You, and I only used this 3 times in the last month. I was using another eyeshadow in another project as a lid setting shade, and now that I'm done with that usage on that eyeshadow, this is a perfect lid setting shade for me, and that's how I'm going to be continuing to use this one in the future. So hopefully next month we'll see a little bit more of a dip in it. Shade number 8 is called Snack, and I only used this 2 times last month. It also has glitter sparkles in it. I have learned that that is called a sequin shade. It's all right. It's not my favorite, and I think that's the theme of this. These shades are all right. It's not my favorites. And I did pick up this palette along with the other 2 palettes when I first started getting into makeup and was just wanting to build up my collection. Now I would be a lot more selective in my choices of eyeshadow palettes and really wouldn't have chose any of them. But they're in my collection. I'd like to use them, so there we are. And then shade number 9 is called Sheesh, and I used that 11 times. This shade is a little bit different of a consistency than the rest of them. When you dip into it, it doesn't kick powder up. It seems like, I don't want to say it's a cream one, but it definitely has a different consistency, somewhere in between cream and powder. I think you're supposed to be using that as an eyeliner shade, but what I have come to find is that it is a perfect color for my brows. And that is how I've been using it, and probably how I'm going to be continuing to use it, along with the occasional brown eyeliner. But those are my usages on my palette. Now, looking at the overall grams in this palette, total grams in this palette is 8. So if I want to hit my goal of using this up by the end of the year, I have to use 0.67 grams of product in this palette each month to hit that goal. This month, like I said before, I only used 0.48 grams. So I really need to pick up the pace with my usage of my Pan That palette. I've just been having so much fun with my other palettes. And you know what? I'm okay with that, because that's what caused me to burn out last year when I was panning a palette in my Rolling Project 10 pan, and I don't want that to happen to me this year. I'm okay with my usage on it. I hit a pan on this palette already. I think I'm doing pretty okay, and if it doesn't get used up by the end of the year, so be it. Moving over to my Better Together palette, which is a palette that is better when it's used with another palette. So I decided to roll in my L'Oreal Color Riche Army Brat palette. This is the only L'Oreal palette that I have in my collection, and I'm glad I don't have more, because in using it this past month, I really don't like the eyeshadow formula inside of it. But it's been in my collection forever. It's gonna get its time in the sun this year, and hopefully I can use this up. This is what it was looking like last month, weighing in at 34.88 grams. And this is what it's looking like this month, weighing in at 34.73 grams. For a total of 0.15 grams used. And this is the palette up close and in person. No pans on this palette as of yet, but let me walk through the usage of this. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna pop a picture of this palette up on the screen with my usages for the month so that you can see, and I don't have to hold it up the entire video. Just a quick side note, none of these shades have names on the back of it. They are just numbered. So this is considered shade 1, shade 2, shade 3, and shade 4, and that's how I'm going to be referring to them. This past month, shade 1 I have only used twice, and one of those uses was in my look today. I do not gravitate towards this shade at all, but in using it today, I have realized that it is a wonderful goldy shade. I really think that this palette is going to shine from now until St. Patrick's Day, and I plan on using it quite a bit in that way, and especially this gold shade because I think it's going to look really great for St. Patrick's Day looks. Shade number 2 I used 13 times, and this shade I have been using as an inner corner highlight as well as a brow bone highlight, and I love this shade in this way. I have not used it to set my eyeshadow primer yet. I was using a white one to do that, and that could probably do the trick as well, and I might be trying that when I'm doing lighter looks, more cool toned pastel-y looks, which the time for that is coming. Spring is coming. Shade number 3 I only used 4 times. I have come to find that this is a really great outer corner shade, but it is very dark and deep in the pan, though it does not translate that way on the eye. You really have to build the shade up a little bit, but that may be a blessing in disguise because if I just want a little bit of darkness in the outer corner, then that shade is ideal for that. And shade number 4 I used only 3 times in the past month. It is a very glittery green shade, and I actually really have it as the star of the show in my eye look today. It is the shimmery sparkle that I have on my outer corner, and then I also used it as an eyeliner on my upper lash line and my lower lash line as well. And as you can see, it really kind of looks black, although it does have some green shimmery sparkle to it. So I think this shade is going to really be key again for St. Patrick's Day looks. This is what I'm going to be using as an eyeliner for all of my St. Patrick's Day looks. So that is my usage on the L'Oreal Color Riche Armory Brat palette. These shadows are very firmly pressed, so I don't know how long it's going to take me to hit pan on anything in this palette, but I guess we're going to find out. There's 4.8 grams of product in this palette, so more than half of what's in the ColourPop palette. The average amount of shadow that I have to use monthly to be able to use this palette up by the end of the year is 0.40 grams. I only used 0.15 grams this past month. So if I want any chance at hitting goals in this palette, using it up by the end of the year, then I really need to step up the pace with it. But again, I have been really enjoying myself getting a lot of use out of my collection. I use these palettes when I want to, and I don't want to be locked into, you have to use them all the time. That's what burns me out. So you know what? Whatever my progress is by the end of the month, it is what it's going to be. Let me show you some of the looks that I did with these palettes in this past month. And then I am also going to include a slideshow progression of the palettes and how they look from month to month. So let me insert that here for you. But yeah, that's my first update for my Pan That palette and Better Together project pans. Are you doing this project? If you are, put it in the comments down below. What palette or palettes are you working on? Are you updating on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube? Let me know, and I'd love to hop on over and cheer you on. But that's everything that I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. You know I always love when you do. Don't forget, if you like what you see, to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell. It lets YouTube know that you like my content and that other people with the same interests as you will like my content too. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.